You gave it all that you are. You are the life, the best life by far. You are the one, the Lord, my God. Lord, you are all I'll ever need. The life I have now, I have in you. And in my life, oh Lord, you lead. Loving you is all I'll ever do. You gave it all that you are. You are the life, the best life by far. You are the one, the Lord, my God. Jesus, the Lamb of God, come near. And to you my all is what I give. Abiding in you, I have no fear. You call me a brand new life to live. You gave it all that you are. You are the life, the best life by far. You are the one, the Lord, my God. You gave it all that you are. You are the life, the best life by far. You are the one, the Lord, my God.
What up, everybody? Welcome back to Tuesday. We're gonna get right into it, and as I said before, this episode is about a kind of a reaction, but I have a take on it that I think what I've noticed is people have a problem. At least those of people who call themselves defenders of faith. They have one basic problem, and I'm not quite sure why it's this big of a problem, but their problem is that they just don't feel comfortable just saying because God said so. I don't know what's so difficult about that. I find it kind of odd that it's a pretty straightforward, simple thing to say. Why is that wrong? Because God said so. Well, why is it a sin? Because God said so. like like you want more than that. You want an explanation past that point. Why do you follow it? Because God said so. I've yet to understood the why. Anyway, that's kind of where this thing leads. So let's find out. And I know some of you get annoyed by Ben's voice and all that, but patience is a virtue. He does a fairly good job of defending the point of view. But again, Ben isn't a Christian, he's a Jew. So he's not under the tenets of the Christian faith. So take that with a grain of salt. We're not here to defend a Christian perspective necessarily, but the God centric perspective of him saying something is wrong. So, okay.
So you believe in banning abortions, right?
I'm pro-life, yes.
Even in cases of incest and rape?
Yes.
Why?
Because this is a sort of a fundamental definitional question. Mm-hmm. If you believe life begins at conception, then regardless of the source of the life, it now has an independent interest in life. So that is not to minimize the tremendous evil of rape or incest. I believe rapists should be executed, frankly, or chemically castrated at best. But that's sort of a different question from the independent source of life and whether this, again, it gets back to definitions. And this conversation tends to be either you're on one side of that or the other. If you don't believe life begins at conception, then obviously you believe abortion is acceptable in a wide variety of circumstances. If you believe it's an independent life deserving of protection, then you believe it's an independent life deserving of protection.
Now, from a societal view, there's going to be the discrepancies of thought process. Life doesn't begin at conception. Life does begin at conception. Life doesn't begin until birth. Life begins when they start to be cognizant in the womb. You don't know when they become cognizant. You see all the gray area? I think a lot of the gray area would be eliminated if we looked at this from a God-centric point of view. The reason why man is so convoluted with this topic is because man's convoluted with his thought process to begin with. And it's a simple word. It's called selfishness. Man loves to be selfish. He can't help but be selfish. And so in selfishness, he will pick the best option for him. Not the right option, just the best one for him or her.
Lauren, what do you think about that? That's one.
I think that a woman should be able to choose to do what she wants to do wherever she decides to do it. I believe that women should be able to abort babies if they want to, if they feel like that's what they need to do.
Do you have a time limit on that out of curiosity?
I mean, I think it should happen earlier on if it were me making a decision for myself. But I think it's up to the woman and what she's personally experiencing and what she personally went through. I really think it's a per person thing. That's why I think it's crazy when you have like these structures and these like people who are not in that situation making the decision for the woman of what you can and can't do.
Every time I hear the argument that it's a woman's choice, every single time I hear it, it has to do with something to negate the reason that you're with a child. Every time it's an avoidance of how you got there. They never want to talk about how you got there. So what they do is they pick the most extreme of circumstances. And the two they pick, of course, is rape, incest. If those two are on the board, we should be all on board for abortion because those two incidences, when that's of the minute spectrum, so they pick it because it's the most emotionally charging. But just like myself and Corey ask, is what did the baby do? What did the baby do? I don't see how the baby has a. I don't know why. I don't know why the baby catching strays. Like, Like, you out here doing your thing with people that you pick to do your thing with. And after you do your thing, the person that catches the strays for and punishment is somebody who didn't request your thing. They just they showed up as a result of your thing. I find that kind of look, I just find it kind of weird that the baby got to pay for it. But I do understand why the baby has to pay for it. Because, like I said, my initial statement, selfishness.
Because it's very like per person. My situation might be different than another woman who's sitting next to me.
Right. So again, this is sort of the definitional issue that we're talking about, because you're talking about what a woman should be allowed to do. And what I'm talking about is the definition of personhood of the separate person inside the woman. I think that what I push on is why do you personally believe that a woman should have an abortion earlier?
I think and from personal experience, I've been in a situation. I just think emotionally and mentally, it's less that you think about, but it does depend on how you think of when the life is formed or you know, should be looked at as like a life that you.
Right. So that I think is the big question. And that's where the disconnect is. So
it's not a disconnect. It is not a disconnect. And I'm sick of us trying to pretend that they don't understand. I am absolutely sick and tired of trying to play this card game of they do understand what they're doing. She just told you she understood. What are the odds that she gets it, but no other woman that's ever had an abortion doesn't get it? They all get it. They know what they're doing. There's no disconnect. Every time it happens, they know what they've done. And as much as they want to remove their emotional consciousness from it, they feel what they've done, which is why progressively they get more and more deranged and angry because they're fighting what they know they just did. You look at it and you tell me if I'm wrong. Go find anyone that's had multiple, that hasn't found the Lord. Go find them, and if they've had multiple, look and see the kind of personality they have. It's all angry because they know what they're doing. But they're so selfish and so self-based that they'll keep going back to it because they somehow think that's going to make them feel better, even though they know it's not going to make them feel better. It's not psychology, it's psychosis and selfishness.
So,
but what I'm saying is that's always going to be different for each person.
But I don't think that the subjective definition of life is how we define life, meaning that you being uncomfortable with a woman having an abortion in the 9th month, you're saying that just because you're uncomfortable with it, that doesn't mean that you should stop a woman from doing that. My point is that life has a definition, right? We all agree, for example, that a 1-month-old baby should not be drowned.
Some don't agree with that. You want proof? Watch the break. He just said that, right? Watch how long it takes them to answer.
Right, we all agree on that. And that's not up to the personal. Should not be drowned. You shouldn't take the baby and drown in a bathtub. Right. And the question is, well, why? Because we now understand that the 1-month-old baby, everyone agrees with this, right? That except for Peter Singer at Princeton, that a 1-month-old baby has an independent interest in life, right? That is a life that is separate from the woman and requires protection.
You know, there's still going to be some that say, well, what if the child's on life support? Do you remove the tubes when the child's on life support? What do they call it when you remove the child from life support? You see, they're more than willing to allow this atrocity to continue because it's convenient. It's convenient. And I don't know necessarily that you can convince these people with wordings the way Ben's doing it to change their mind. You're not going to.
Okay, so if it is a life, then we now have an objective definition. Doesn't matter what the state of mind of the woman is. Doesn't matter if she thought, you know what, I have a really tough life. My life will be better off if this baby is drowned, if I don't have to deal with this baby, and so I'm going to drown the baby. The baby has an independent actual interest in living. And so the question becomes, is that true before birth? And I think for the vast majority of Americans are actually somewhere where you are practically, meaning that the vast majority of Americans do see in sort of a soft way a distinction between, the early stages of life, month 2 and 9 month, right? Like the approval in America of abortion at the very late stages is very, very low because most Americans,
it stops around like 4 or 5 months for most people, right?
Well,
like,
I mean, most abortions are performed in the first trimester.
Yeah.
Yes. But the point that I'm making is that the logic that you're using allows for abortion, like literally right before the baby is born.
The logic that has to be absent, for people to do that, you would have to think one of two things. Either they have no intelligence or they're evil. Those are the only two options you have. To wait till the 9th, 8th, 7th month. You either have to have no brain cells or you are evil. Those are the only two chances I can give you to even, because I can justify you doing it if you're evil. Evil is what made you do it, so I can justify that. You have no brain cells, so I can justify you doing it. Those are the only two things I can give you an excuse for.
So then the question becomes, why is that okay? And it's not a woman's choice at that point, whether that is a life or not, because you don't get to artificially or subjectively define the meaning of things.
That. We're playing with semantics, though.
Yeah, that's what
it's not semantic. Either it's a life or it's not a life, right?
If your daughter was raped.
No,
and you see what I mean? They go to the most retarded point of view because they have to. What if your daughter was essayed? Same thing I told you. Every time they talk about this, they cannot logically work through a woman deciding to just lay down with a dude without protection. That's never in the conversation. What if they got attacked and by a family? And what if they just got raped? No. Address the more obvious and consistent one. What if she was wanting to just go and have sex with somebody without protection? That's 90%, 95% of what takes place. But it's not emotionally charged enough of a conversation if you just say she chose.
It's almost like you're saying she's raped, but I'm gonna make her have this child.
No, I mean,
because you're saying you don't believe in abortion, even if rape and incest, right?
What I'm saying there is that I don't believe in abortion in case of rape and incest. The practical effect is horrible. Okay, mm-hmm. I'm not going to pretend that it is not emotionally horrifying, that particular situation. Mm-hmm. The question is whether it has an independent interest in life or not, and whether there's a third party involved. If you don't believe there's a third party deserving of protection, I totally get it. I get it. But we should understand that that's the actual conversation.
Now, divorce of God, this entire conversation will make sense. A divorce of God, this entire conversation would make sense because you have to remove morality from the conversation to have this conversation on a what is okay and not okay level. Because then you replace morality with what I want. You take right and wrong out of the equation, and you can have any conversation you want. And that's what they hope to do, is to remove the moral compass from society so much, remove God from the conversation so far that all they have left is, well, what I feel for me is blah, 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 blah. And if I feel that way, you should be okay with me feeling that way. However, all of a sudden, they'll bring back the right and wrong thing if you say, I don't agree with you. Then they'll say, well, why don't you just love people? So you're willing to abandon reason, right and wrong for your points of view and not for when the other person has an opposite point of view. Why? Because, like I said initially, you selfish. You are flamboyantly selfish.
Actual conversation is about whether you believe that this is an interested third-party being. Do you get to kill that interested third-party being, this human life with potential, or do you not? If you, and so the actual argument that I don't like is the idea that you can, that everybody, it's up to every single person to define when life begins and when life does not begin. That actually is not true, right? There's either a standard or there's not a standard. Now you can say that life begins when the baby is independent of the mom.
Mhm.
Okay? I think it's a very dicey biological argument. And I think most Americans agree with that life only begins when the baby exits.
I think it begins with a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's where most Americans are, and that's
Yes.
extremely early, right? And so if that's extremely, if the life begins with a heartbeat, then you're now talking about, depending on your definition of a heartbeat, somewhere between 6 and 10 weeks, right? Very, very, very early. And so if that is now has an independent interest, you're talking about abortion restrictions very early on. And so that's why, a lot of red states have signed heartbeat laws, for example. Right? And so, again, I think that the clarity is good, right? Because now we can have a conversation. Where do you think life begins?
You can't have a conversation. You think you're having a conversation. And this is why I think this is all useless. The debate over abortion being right or wrong is useless. It is absolutely useless. I don't mean talking about the topic of abortion and having a view, but I mean trying to convince people that genuinely believe abortion is evil. Dead conversation. Dead conversation. You'll never be able to convince me that they don't know. Never. They know. They know.
And that's a better conversation than the sort of assumption by, I think, people who are not pro-life, that pro-life is just about controlling the woman's body. No, it isn't. Okay, it really is not. Like, for pro-lifers, it has literally nothing to do with the woman's body. It has to do with the independent interest of the life inside the woman and how you define that. If you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. In today's AI and cyber world scam, you probably should do the team vulnerable to any change.
And can and can't do with her body.
Promo code.
It's back to the right position here.
Once you define it, depending on your definition, it does control what a woman can and can't do with her body.
Well,
No, duh, dummy. Because it's murder, you idiot. You see why I say you can't have a conversation with these morons? So if you decide it's a life, then you're going to tell me I can't murder? Yes. Duh. If we decide it's a life, then yes, you cannot murder. How? Do you see? This is the kind of stuff that just absolutely upsets the living daylights out of me. It's angering.
downstream effects to definitions, of course, right? I mean, if I define life as it begins at a heartbeat, then that is going to have public policy ramifications that affect, and just as in anything else, if I define theft in a particular way, that's going to have downstream effects on people who commit that definition of the crime.
No different than the Second Amendment, right? If I say bump stocks are now illegal, it affects my ability to purchase and use a bump stock. In my estimation, a bump stock is not bad. It doesn't help me kill anybody. But because of the laws passed and how the bump stock is viewed, now I am affected by it. No duh. This is aggravating on so many levels.
And if I broaden the definition, it's going to include more people. And that's true for literally any legal term. It's true for any word that we use in life. As you expand the definition, it affects more people in different ways. But that doesn't change the necessity to have the conversation about what the definition is. And I think it's an easy way out to basically say, well, you know, I have a definition of life, but, and it gets into very dicey territory, because historically people have defined away entire populations as not human. And so we can't do that.
Precisely my point, that you cannot have this discussion without God involved. And the instant you've taken God out of the equation, who is the arbiter of life, you're speaking from a position of anything goes. And you cannot get to a mutual line of agreement when anything goes, because you can't tell me what is wrong and you can't tell me what is right, because that is up to me. There is no more plumb lines. So you will always have the argument that you are wrong for controlling what I do when you think it's not controlling, but I believe it is, which makes my point of view far more solid than yours. Why? Because I feel so. You don't have any other reason to tell me that I'm wrong. You take morality out of the equation and you take the God factor out of the equation, everything will be okay.
Right? Like you really don't want people looking at other people and saying, well, I don't think that this person, I mean, to take the obvious and most controversial example, for a huge percentage of American history, there was a wide variety of people in America who believed black people were not fully human, and therefore you couldn't enslave them.
Yep,
Right?
Compromise.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so like so was that a subjective question? That was not a subjective question. Black people are fully human and just as human as white people, equal, the same, right? Like and so if somebody were to say, listen, I personally am anti-slavery, right? I think that slavery is personally wrong, but it's really up to every person to define for themselves whether a black person is fully a human or not fully a human. Be like, what?
I don't think you can
Like,
compare
what the?
those two things.
Of course. So now it's different. Now for her, all of a sudden it's different for her now. All of a sudden it's different now. I'm going to try. Where is your proof to that claim? Where is your proof of that claim? I know the hyperbolic statements love to be thrown out there. So tell me the proof to your claim. Before we go any further forward, I have to know, what is your proof to this claim? I so want you to answer this question. Please answer the question. What is your proof that Ben Shapiro practices human sacrifices? Man, when I tell you I can't wait to get that answer, can't wait to get that answer. I'll leave the comment up while we continue.
Why?
Just because I think, if I'm making, so if you're a slave master, right, and you say, I believe slavery is right because Black people aren't human, like, that's a decision that you're making that is based on things like, what the slaves can do for you on your property. Like the benefit of what slavery will do for that slave master is so different than if a woman has to have a baby because she was raped and how that will affect her life.
Do you see how dense these people are, that they cannot quantify a conversation? You see what I mean by how mentally inept they are to follow a conversation? All of a sudden now, she knows how to reason through something. Because in her world, she knows now what life is. Now she understands life. With the baby, not life. Choice. With a life that she considers a life, now it's different.
Like that, I think you have a decision that you can make a lot easier.
It's almost like you force a woman twice, right? Because
yeah,
she
like,
says,
do I
no,
become a slave master or not versus do I have a baby or not?
She has this baby and now she's forced to have
again,
a
try a
child.
Jewish analogy. Go.
Sure. So, I mean, sure. So if there was an entire population in Europe that was considered subhuman by the Nazis and they were exterminated, if you said, I am personally against the extermination of the Jews, but I understand why Germans could think that Jews are subhuman. And so, it really is up to every individual to determine whether a Jew is human or not fully human and can be put in the back of a van and gassed. We'd be like, what in the world?
You're saying there should be no pro-choice in regards to that?
Yeah. So the definitions are not a matter of choice. Definitions are a matter of actual objective fact. Otherwise, we can't even have a conversation.
Hence my point. They don't have objective anything. Everything to them is subjective. Everything. I'm still waiting on your answer there, ma'am. But I highly doubt I'm going to get your answer. Everything is subjective because it is entirely based on a selfish notion. There is no definitive right and wrong with these people. The right and the wrong fluctuates as they feel. But it's only applied to them. If somebody else feels like they do, then they're wrong all of a sudden. That's the crazy part. They'll tell you there is no definitive right and wrong, and it's based on how they feel. But then when you feel something that's opposite of what they do, you're wrong.
Because if words have meanings, then we all have to agree on at least that, right? That much we have to agree on is the meaning of the words. And when it comes to, sort of the slave master analogy, the point that I'm making here is not about the personal experience of the slave master. In fact, I'm saying it's completely irrelevant. What I'm saying is that the reason that slavery was wrong is because Black people are fully independent human beings who require the protection of the law in the same way as everyone else. And if you're a pro-lifer, you believe that's also true of the unborn.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I'm a pro-choice person, but I
no doubt, no, for real. You're a pro-choice person? No one could tell, Charlemagne, with a name like Charlemagne the God. I mean, you chose to bleach, so I guess that's one thing. You didn't even like yourself. You hated the fact that you were black, and you went to bleach your skin to get a little bit lighter so you can blend in with the rest of the people you were trying to get money from. What do you know about morality? You out here hiding like a whole homosexual in a corner, but you talking about, I'm a pro-choice. Man, shut up, bro. Shut all the way up. You don't have a moral compass to talk from. I'm a pro-choicer.
Do wonder how come pro-life people aren't anti-war?
What does that have to do with the baby in the womb, dummy? Again, they go to the most outrageous, off the chart, out of the, all the way over into left field for why? Emotionalism. Emotionalism. Why aren't you anti-war? Why aren't you anti-gangs? Why aren't you anti-gangs? Why don't you implement rules to castrate or kill rapists? Why do you let them go? No, you don't do that. Isn't that ideology, mental thing a choice too? If you're pro-choice, then you can have you should be fine with men choosing to take from women what they want, right? That's a choice. That's pro-choice. If you are pro-choice, why aren't you okay with men sexually abusing women? That's their choice. If you are pro-choice, why aren't you okay with men being pedophiles and women being pedophiles? That's choice. If you're pro-choice, why aren't you okay with murder? Well, you kind of are. That's a choice. Pro-choice, right? Whatever I feel is inconvenient to me, I can get rid of. That's choice. Since you want to go to the extreme stupid positions. Again, devoid of morality. This is the conversations you're going to get.
Well, I mean,
Because
I think everybody is anti-war. I think the question is the definition of when war is appropriate. I don't who's running around going like, war is awesome. Yes, more war. Let's do it.
So 50,000 kids have been killed in Gaza because
It's so wild that they'll go to Gaza to find out that 50,000 kids have been killed in Gaza. They're fine with it, apparently, then, if they're pro-choice. If they're trying to say that Ben should have a problem with the women and the children getting killed in Gaza because he's, anti-choice, then by definition, you're saying you're okay with it because it's choice. What does that analogy have to do with anything? Secondarily, why do you need to go to Palestine to do that? All you can go is Chicago. You can go to Detroit. You can go to St. Louis. You can go to Oakland. In fact, you can find 50,000 dead black people that are underaged in the hood. How come you're not anti-war within the ghetto? No? How come you're not how come you, who are so pro-choice, why don't you try and make this thing, make your point known by going into the hood and saying, don't kill each other? Since you're so against this war thing and kids being killed, that's what you are against, right? Cool. And you said that we are pro it. Why don't you stop kids being killed in the hood? Because it's not about helping. It's not about right and wrong. It's about expediency for rage baiting. Expediency for rage baiting.
because of this current war.
Depends on the definitions and the list that you're getting.
Right.
Well, I mean, also depends on how you're defining kid, because the way that Hamas defines kid is very different than how they define kid when it comes to recruiting for Hamas, right? They're 15-year-olds with AKs on the battlefield, unfortunately.
Out of the womb.
It is not 50,000
Well,
out of the womb.
okay.
I mean, if you're talking about like very, very small children, is much, much lower than
But
that.
my point is, there are children that are being killed.
Yes, who have died as collateral damage in the war. Yes.
So shouldn't pro-lifers be totally against that?
We are, dummy. We are against it. The same way we're against abortion, does it still happen?
Well, I mean, I'm against the death of any innocent human being. The question is, when you're doing foreign policy, how you prevent more deaths in the future. And the point that I think Israel is making is this war
You're
was
basing it off legislation, and it's actually not a matter of morals and values. Or
no, of course, it's a matter of morals and values. But you can't be. Let's put it this way: it's incredibly reductive to simply say that if you are a moral person, then you oppose all war, because what that does, it allows immoral people to then use that against you to destroy your civilization.
Do you see why I say you can't have a conversation with these people? This conversation is supposed to be about abortion. They were losing that argument. They were losing the argument because their points of view kept fluctuating to the most extremes. So they have to go to a further extreme. Ben stayed on point, but they had to go to a further extreme to try and get their point home.
If your community is attacked and bad people who don't have the same values as you decide to kill you, kill your children, rape your wife and kill her, are you supposed to say, well, I'm anti-war, and so I'm going to sit here and do nothing?
So isn't that the same if somebody rapes a woman and impregnates them?
No, dummy, because you're not killing the kid. It is not the same. Because we're telling you to go attack the person that raped them.
Shouldn't, in that case, that person be allowed to make a choice?
Well, no, the point is that the prevention, this is why you should minimize civilian casualties. To get back to the beginning of the conversation, this is why it's independently moral to try as much as possible to minimize civilian casualties. And when it comes to abortion, the idea is you can minimize that casualty by just preventing it.
How can you prevent being raped?
By making an example of rapist, you dummy. You dingbat. If you made an example of rapists, you know how easy it would be to not rape? Listen to this carefully. Okay, listen. If you were to say you found a rapist and you decide the punishment for rapists is sawing and quartering you, you think people are going to be, and there's no questions, we're just going to saw and quarter you. In fact, first what we're going to do is remove all your fingernails and toenails while you're still alive with no anesthesia. You found doing that to a woman, and we make sure that we put you through the most torturous, vile, the most painful punishment we can. If we can do that and allow, then castrate you before we kill you. You think there are going to be many rapists after that point? You think people are going to be prone to say, I can just do it? If in the system now where they're just let go, or they do 5 or 10 years, if that, there's no deterrent to it. There's no deterrent to any crime, really. You go and you sit in jail for a few 5, 10 years. There's no executions that really take place. And even when you do commit them to, hey, you know what? Death penalty, they're still on death row for another 30 years. What if you started making a true example? Hear me out. True example of all the people. You kill kids, you die. Next day. Not even give you a week in jail. We find you guilty. The instant we find you guilty, there is no appeal, nothing. Yank off the courts, out the door, to a location to house you for the next day. So the next day, we end you. You do that for any rapist and watch how the numbers just plummet. But y'all don't want to make an example. Human rights. The reason you're not going to do that is because you genuinely know that's not the reason for most abortions. You know that.
Well, I mean, that's a different question. Again,
But in that, let's talk about that, because what I don't like is people pick.
Listen, first of all, when we're talking about rape and abortion, we should note that well over 99% of abortions are not undertaken because of rape. And so, if you want to come with me and ban all abortions except for rape, I'll probably make that trade for you.
I would never make that trade. I'd never make that trade. Because you're still conceding to murder. You're still conceding to murder. Okay, well, you can kill, but only kill people that do that one thing. In fact, it's not even that. You can murder somebody that's a third party, but only if the second party does something to the first party in this way. The third party still didn't do anything. What are you talking about? The baby still didn't do anything. There is no concessions to be made with these people. It's murder of an innocent that did not do a thing. No, what we should say is rapists should be absolutely annihilated on the chopping block. They should be taken out, whipped, beaten by the father of the woman they raped. They should be beaten by the mother of the child that they raped. They should be beaten by the brothers, beaten till their brakes fall off, and then continue on the next path of removing certain parts until there's nothing left of them. That would be the greatest punishment to keep people from doing it. You brazen enough to do that to a woman, you should be brazen enough to take whatever comes your way, right? He who sheds blood, by men shall his blood be shed. I'm going to shed it. Are we shedding? We shedding today. You decide to do that, then you have opened yourself up to the law to take over. But if the law has no potency, why call it a law?
If you want to ban all abortions, elective abortions, and what I have to do is give up abortion with regard to rape and incest, that is a trade on a pragmatic level politically that I would make.
Okay, so you're not dying on that hill.
Well, it's not that I believe that, again, rape and incest, I think, is the reason people choose that argument is because it's the hardest argument to make emotionally from the pro-life side.
It's not hard. Because I'm not going to make an emotional argument. This is where we fall prey to this retardation. I am not making an emotional argument about any topic I pick. To hell, literally to hell, where the devil gonna be with your emotional argument. An emotional argument has no foundation. Why am I participating in your stupidity by joining an emotional argument? I'm not doing that. That's stupid. What moron thinks that, oh, you know what I'm going to do? And I'm going to invest some time in arguing something emotional. I'm just going to park logic for a few seconds here so I can argue out of my feelings. Nobody who calls himself a Christian, a conservative, on the right should be making any argument from emotions or even try to reach out to the emotional side of people for anything. It's either right, wrong, lawful, or unlawful. There's no I feel. Which is why when they remove the hard and fast things of God, you can do anything you want. And eventually, hear me out, eventually rape will be something that they even have no problem doing because it's choice. Who's to say? They're already allowing men in women's locker rooms. They're allowing men in girls' sports, girls' locker rooms. They want to include men messing with children as a part of a sexual spectrum. What makes you think that rape ain't gonna slip in there too? It's emotional, right?
But I think that we should note that the vast majority of abortions have nothing to do with rape or incest. They have to do with elective abortions. Was that?
Never got the wrong person pregnant?
Jesus.
No, my wife 4 times, thank God.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, that's all.
This nonsensical point of view that I think, unfortunately, too many Christians fall into. We believe somehow that this word love includes the acceptance of sin. We believe this word love means the acceptance of illogical choices. And we've bought it hook, line, and sinker. I'm not willing to concede anything to the people who don't even know what right and wrong is. I'm not conceding any ground to you. Zip, zilch, nothing. You are not worth it for me to sacrifice anything for your point of view. You're not worth it to me. And for all your stupidity and trying to include some vague idea of love and trying to transpose your version of love on the thing you call God, when I know that's not, you're not going to convince me by using that argument either. Because if you really did love God to the point where you say, what would God, you'd be following him, but you're not following him. You're using him as a cudgel. And it's not even him. You're using his name and a archetype type of him to say that's what it, but you don't even know him to use him as an argument point. Atheists want to come argue God and you don't know. So how the heck you gonna argue from a point of view you never had, you dummy? You want to argue morality in a case that you don't even know what morality is. How could you do that? If there is no foundation, how are you going to make your point and have it stand? It's not going to stand because you don't have anything to place it on. You're building in midair, and of course your parts are just going to fall to the floor, but you're so delusional, you really think it's going to stay there. Everybody else sees your parts just dropping and breaking on the ground. You're the only idiot standing there thinking, I'm building such a great building. But you know what? I'm pro-abortion. I'm pro-abortion, and here's how I think they should do abortion from here on out. If you are pro-abortion and you're not pregnant, and you're a female, or you're pro-abortion and you have never gotten anybody pregnant and you're a male, you should go through the process first. I volunteer you for the process. And I mean all of them. You should go through the entire spectrum from the small to the most bombastic one. If you are pro it, go through it. Prove to me that one, it's not painful, and two, it's okay. And it's not taking a life. Remember, it's not a life, so it won't kill you because it's not taking a life. It's just an action. So go through it. We need to have you do some saline injections. We need to douse you in a liquid that will absolutely eat your skin apart. We need to have that happen to those who are pro-choice. I want you to go through it. And if you survive, then you can keep your point of view. But you've got to survive the gauntlet, though. I want you to go from beginning to end. I want you to have the pill applied to you, and I want you to go through all the way to suction. And I need the equal gravity of the weight to be put upon you. Whatever it would take by vacuum for the child to get suctioned out, it should be applied by the times it would need for your body mass to be sucked up to. You should go through it. Since it's not painful and it's just another thing, you go through it. You're all pro-choice now that you're alive. You do it first. Lead by example. Go ahead. Lead by example. No, they don't need no class. They seen the class. I want them to have it happen to them. I need them to endure it. Let somebody walk up to you with some clamps and yank your worthless leg off. That's what I want to see happen since you love it so much. You just love the idea of tearing a baby apart. Let it happen to you. If you pause after the first leg gets chopped off, then we can talk, right? We'll put you in a cocoon about the size that the child would have for maneuverability. We'll give you an oxygen tank with some fluids around you. And then we'll have a clamp come in and just grab onto your leg and pull until it separates. We'll duct tape your mouth so we can't hear you scream. We'll blindfold you so you can't see nothing. The room will be dark. Don't worry. You won't see it coming. You won't even know when the clamp reaches until it clamps down on your worthless leg, right? They're worthless. Remember, just a clump of cells until it clamps down and you feel these teeth yank into your leg and start to pull. And you feel your femur separating from your hip. Right? That's what we want to see. We want you to go through it. And once we've had that leg out, we'll go back for the second one. And if you still haven't changed your mind, we'll go back for your arms. Then we'll go right back in for your torso. And then if you still didn't submit, we'll crush your skull and suction all your brains out through a tube and throw your body away. Since it's just a clump of cells. You good with that? You want to volunteer next week? Miss Pro-Abortion? Or how about this? We'll put you in the same vat and then we'll start pumping acidic liquids into it to melt you. How about that one? You like that one? That one sounds good. That one sounds better. You're not getting torn. Instead, you just sit there in a burning liquid until you dissolve. That one sound better? It's not so pretty when it's on you, huh? I have a life. The kid did too. Oh, wait. Is my emotional aspect of things getting too much? I thought you wanted me to argue from an emotional point of view. Here's my emotional point of view. You seem to want everybody to experience your thing from a different perspective, from your perspective, right? If you want me to understand from your perspective, I need you to understand from the kid's perspective. How is that unequal? That's equal. I think that's completely equal. I think it's fair too. Oh, what more than fair? I would love that to happen for you. Why? So you can have a true foundation to finally place your belief system on. You don't need to believe in God. Don't believe in God. God is inconsequential to you, right? Cool. But you do need a right and wrong situation, to a good platform to base your beliefs on, something concrete, more than feelings. So the best bet is for you to endure what you believe. Why is that so tough? It's not a big deal. It's just an act. You're just removing something. It's not going to hurt. And who's screaming in a bunch of liquid? Nobody. You'll be fine. But you're not willing to go to that extreme. Because, like I said at the very beginning, you are selfish. You have no problem murdering an inconvenient human. You have no problem murdering an inconvenient human. If they put a damper on your lifestyle, there are consequences to your actions, and you're trying to avoid that consequence, so you kill it. It's just a roach. It's a pest. But for some reason, when we apply the logic that you have to you, how dare you? That's so gross. Hey, you're the one that likes it, not me. Precisely. There are stories upon stories of people finding pregnant women and removing the baby from the womb, killing the baby, killing the mother. They get a double life sentence. Why? Oh, because the woman thought it was a baby, then it becomes one? Well, I don't believe you're a human, so I think we should try and test that theory. I don't think you fully made it to the human level. So I think what we should do is do a test. And the best test I can think of is yours. The test for humanity is to see if any pain is being felt in a very vicious procedure. In fact, we'll take one of the ones that you agree with, which is abortion. And I think that would be the most obvious. I would be complying with your version of life, wouldn't I? I don't think that you are worth anything to this world. That's what I feel, my belief. So if that's the way, and you're an inconvenience to me, then I need to be able to remove you. And I want to do it in some of the most egregious fashion. So I think that should be okay. But that's, you somehow draw the line there. That's murder. So if I came out blind, deaf, dumb, and quadriplegic, and I was still dependent on everybody, I should be euthanized, right? I'm not any value to society. When you take God out of the equation, you end up with Sodom and Gomorrah. When you take God out of the equation, you end up with a society led by people like Jezebel. When you remove God from society, you end up with Egypt. Everything becomes subjective based on your feelings. I'm not making a concession for any level of abortion. Any level. Because the baby didn't do anything. At all. Hang on one second. I'm going to get this real quick. And this is where I'm going to close this off. I refuse to make concessions with people that think like those people do. I refuse. And there are going to be many that just decide that that's enough for them to do. Scrolling at the bottom. You know what to do with that. But I also understand there's going to be people coming after the fact that what I said at the end will upset you. And I want to put your mind at ease. If you hear the descriptions I've made, I want to make sure I set your mind at ease. If you're upset by it, you're mad, you're triggered by it, I want to say this to you. I don't care. Don't care. I don't care if you're upset. I don't care if you're butthurt. I don't care. Be mad, stay mad, find a different way to display your upset, leave a all caps comment. Don't care. I know who made the miracle of childbirth. I know who made the miracle of child conception. And if he created that to be something that mankind should endure and enjoy, then you do not get the right to end it. So be mad, stay mad. Enjoy your madness too. I hope it, saturates your whole being and let yourself get, completely flustered. Just be careful. You might catch a stroke from it. It's bad for your brain if you have one. So, if that's how you feel like living, feel free, but you ain't going to ruin my day by you being mad. Oh, well. This is my concern face. I appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Again, the option at the bottom to contribute to this channel. If you ask and something that needs to be done by God, do it. If not, that's on between you and God, not between me and you. We'll catch you tomorrow, God willing. I'll leave you with a song that I used to listen to way back in the day. Wisdom calls to you from the street. So please, please, please find wisdom.
Jesus walked upon the earth on the shores of Galilee and say to his disciples, let the little children come to me. I wonder if up in heaven, do you suppose we'll see little children asking, what was I supposed to be? What was I supposed to be? What were my eyes supposed to see? Why did I taste of death before I even drew a breath? Lay my head at my mother's breast to sleep. Oh Jesus, what was I supposed to be? What was I supposed to be? What were my eyes supposed to see? Why did I taste of death before I even drew a breath? Lay my head at my mother's breast to sleep. Oh Jesus, what was I supposed to be? Was I to be a prophet used in the ministry? A doctor who would find the cure for some terrible disease? Even if I'd been born imperfect, why couldn't my parents see? I'd have been made perfect when you came back for me. Oh Jesus, what was I supposed to be? What were my eyes supposed to see? Why did I taste of death before I even drew a breath. Lay my head at my mother's breast to sleep. Oh, Jesus, what was I supposed to be? Jesus, what was I supposed to be?